Hey everybody, Travelin' Trav here, Travelin' Trav's Trans-Rational Blues. Here's the meme. A lot of my fellow men have really misunderstood the assignment with the whole man versus bear thing. Your job wasn't to come charging in to mansplain to women why they were wrong for choosing the bear. Your job was to listen to them about why they would choose the bear, and then to hold our fellow men accountable so that in the future, women would not feel inclined to choose the bear. That was the assignment, fellas. Well, okay, Travelin' Trav would like to address this because Travelin' Trav's been on assignment for many, many years now. Here we go. Are you ready? Here's my response. I believe that these are masculine-feminine balance issues we are addressing. Any critique on toxic masculinity must come with an equal criticism of feminine toxicity. It's not one or the other. It's us. This is our problem. We are out of balance. What qualifies this mansplaining, you may rightly ask? Travelin' Trav's Trans-Rational Blues. This is my work, and has been for many years now. For years, I softened my edges for a wounded woman. This wounded man, me, was desperately trying to discover his own expression of nurturing masculinity. Both myself and my ex-wife had been born into shaming control systems. Ouch. It was really hard on both of us. We both gave everything we had. In fact, we both gave exactly too much. We compromised our deepest self to try and accommodate for the other. See the book, The Gift of the Magi. Although we are no longer married, I have a lot of respect for the quest that those two young people, her and I, were making together. We truly wanted to do it right, and we, even back in the 90s, were trying consciously to correct the man-woman issues in our religion, in our understanding of the hierarchies. That was before we had learned a lot that we know now. After religion failed us, we became academic feminists, literally. I tried to make my penance for the patriarchy. I mocked my own manhood. It made her feel safe. I identified and confessed my toxic masculinity at every turn. It wasn't enough. We explored together the bounds of progressivism. These man-woman issues are just one lens through which we may view our collective lack of wisdom, which results in this great violence that we have put on ourselves as a species. By the time I knew that I absolutely had to leave my first wife, I felt very crushed and gaslighted by a woman who herself would not fully tend to her own issues. I had given up my power so that I would not injure her, and in that surrender, I became her victim. I could see very clearly how I was being controlled, but was too deeply enmeshed to find my way out. When I suggested a separation at couples therapy, she called me motherfucker and traitor. "We are never coming back to therapy," she declared at the end of the session. That spoke a lot to me, because a separation was my true effort to dissolve our unhealthy emotional enmeshment. It was a shit show. It wasn't her fault. I was born to overcome this victimization. It was what I was taught as a child, so I had to go out and invent situations in which I could face it in myself. I can only see myself in you, and I can only see myself in my ex-wife. I speak out now because I believe that this is an important part of the current conversation between men and women. I believe that we must look at all the violence in our world and then come to understand that same violence in ourselves. That's what I heard first from Jesus, then from Thich Nhat Hanh and Pema Chodron and many others afterward. This is the message that I received from many sources as I studied this problem in my family of birth, then in my marriage, and then in myself. I have no blanket answers. My mansplaining will not do the trick. But I am very familiar with the problem. The problem can be described many ways. This masculine-feminine energy imbalance is one way to describe it. Thankfully, we have been making progress in our ability to relate to each other in our strength and in our vulnerability. I have been making progress in my ability to relate to women in my strength and in my vulnerability, and I trust you have been doing the same. Here is what I believe that we have discovered. We cannot victimize anyone without victimizing ourselves. I identify with the struggle of women. Woman's struggle is not separate from my struggle. My inner work has led me to a self-knowledge of woman in me, and I did my best, as a wounded man, to die for woman, as my faith tradition instructed me to do. Die for your wife as Christ died for the church. That was all very real for me, especially as a young man. But there was no one at church who had any wisdom like I am now describing. I had to surrender to that discovery process in me. All deepest respect and love to everyone who knows themselves to be in this process of recovery from our collective demoralization. We have come to believe ourselves as separate from the divine and from one another. That has made us incredibly sick and weak in spirit, and I know that illness in myself intimately. And this is what Traveling Trav's Trans-Rational Blues is all about, my good friends. Together, we are discovering our common work, our common stories, and our common love. A lot of witches had to be drowned before we realized that we were only drowning ourselves. We cannot enslave without becoming enslaved. Here we are, together, man and woman, trying to figure this out. I believe that we must learn to work with masculine and feminine energies in ourselves. Then we may have a chance at collaborating with the opposite sex. More mansplaining, I know. Shit, a middle-aged white guy should hardly talk these days. Seriously, though. How do we understand ourselves? And for those of us who are still drawn to the opposite sex, how do we work that out together? It appears to me that every interaction has purpose. I consider every interaction sacred that I have between myself and the feminine. I am that feminine. Deepest blessings always, Travelin' Trav. Travelin' Trav's Trans-Rational Blues. Come on, Trav.